Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Metagame Book Club, Track 2. This week, we're going to recap Week 1 reading and titled it The Hero's Adventure. So that's actually the same name as the chapter you're reading in The Power of Myth as well. So, first of all, before we get started, I want to thank the people who are helping us out. We have ISTE's Game and Simulations Network. Also, a big shout out to the Inevitable Betrayal Guild for helping us out with in-game tours as well as helping out with the WoW lore and the WoW discussions there in the community. So today our discussions are Chris and Kay. I'm Chris, obviously. So we'll go ahead and continue on. So basically what we have is this is part of the Metagame November Book Club. This is running from November 1st through the November 23rd. So just to give you a reminder there, as well as those that are coming in a little bit later. So we are still in the midst of running it. So one of the first things we're going to talk about is the power of myth.
So those of you who read the chapter this week, it's really interesting because remember we had mentioned before, Joseph Campbell does take a Western view of the narrative and creation studies. And the chapter we did was chapter 5, which is the power of myth. Now, yesterday and today, the company that produces World of Warcraft is having their big annual convention. And they have 25,000 people. It's in Anaheim, and while I say 25,000 people, what I mean is that they only sold that many tickets. They don't have room for anyone else. So people get online, and these tickets are sold out almost immediately. So think of this like more like a rock concert. But they are also live streaming a broadcast of this convention, and Chris and I were watching it yesterday, and one of their head developers, as soon as he started to talk about World of Warcraft and the World of Warcraft universe, the thing that got mentioned from him immediately was the hero's journey. Yes, we're on a hero. He goes, and the hero's journey is. So this is really, at least in American culture, this shows up all the time. And this is really the background that a lot of these story developers and game developers are coming from. They think about a video game being a hero's journey. So I'm going to ask you, so I have a couple questions, and I'm going to ask them from Chris. So Chris, when it comes to the chapter that we read, the Power of Myth, the chapter that we read, really went over a couple things. It went over really someone losing something or something taken from them, and having to go through a journey. And this journey takes you away from home, and it makes you go through a series of trials. So in the chapters that we read, and don't do any you don't have to do any foreshadowing or do any spoilers, but in the chapters we read, who exactly was going through that hero's journey now?
Well, actually, I think there are several people going through that journey, and the one that we read the most about is Dorotan is definitely going through that journey. In the first 7 chapters, we meet him, we learn about him. His father is taken away from him, and he gets thrust into basically taking over the clan. And he's also met with the shamans. He's been told he's special, and that he has a destiny to fulfill. So he has that. Another person we meet is Orgrim, basically Dorotan's best friend. He learns and talks about the prophecy. So his actions really haven't started yet, but it's getting to the point. But he's getting close to where his chapter of the destiny starts taking on. And lastly, the other person I would say who's probably going through the hero's journey is Valen as well. I mean, what he has taken from him is his entire planet. His best friends now want to kill him. So I mean, there's lots of things that are out there. So Valen and his followers are going through that path. So I see that those are probably the 3 primary individuals that we're seeing, the heroes that we're seeing rise through the story. So it'll be interesting to see how they progress as the book continues.
And the thing about this is, when we decided to supplement the Rise of the Horde, with the power of myth, we really thought about how you could actually use this in the classroom. Because think about it, you could give an assignment to students, whatever book you're having them read, but then also think about giving chapters in this book, or also if you are inside the classroom, think about looking at the Power of Myth video and showing that portion of it where Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey. So we think that this is something that you can do throughout the way. And even if it's not with The Rise of the Horde, it could be if you were doing it with The Hobbit or any other book that you might want to consider doing with your students, whether it relates to a video game or not. But the thing of it is, most of the games that your students are playing have some sort of narrative behind it. Now, the lore might not be as essential. The lore might not be as much as what you're seeing, as what you've seen in um, in certain books, and certain games might not have as much, but we think World of Warcraft really does this. And this really gets us to our next question. And our next question is, why World of Warcraft? And I'm going to pull up now, I'm going to pull up our metagame book site. And as you guys know, we're doing 2 tracks, and we commingle because we just can't help ourselves. But what I want to scroll down to is we did ask this question. We asked the question here, why World of Warcraft? And the thing of it is, we've been asked this question as the facilitators, and we've also always get asked this whenever we're talking about World of Warcraft in the classroom. And I mean, at least for this, we answered a couple of them, like, why not Minecraft? Minecraft is great, we love it, and we're sure we'll include Minecraft in another one, but we wanted to focus on the narrative. We wanted to look at something that was really essential in a lot of the massively online multiplayer games. It's a hero's journey, and that these games give you an opportunity to play the hero. That's a big thing. That's a big difference between a book and a video game. A book is very interpretive, okay? And you read it and you see where the author wants you to go. While a video game definitely has parameters. There are certain, and the designers do put branching stories in there, so there might be certain choices you have to take. But then there's also a lot of opportunities for you to be the hero. There's lots of opportunities for you and your students, the person who's playing it, to go and band together and to become that group of adventurers. And there's a couple of other questions that we try to answer, but we want your answers too. But here's a couple of the other things. Why not other games like Star Wars, Old Republic, and The Lord of the Rings? Well, right now, the reason World of Warcraft does also have an appeal is that there's a very collaborative educators guild, so that you can play with other educators, have discussions with other educators, and kind of decide to play the game and go through this journey yourself as as professional development. And our next question, that why read a World of Warcraft novel now? Well, as we've been continually saying, it's really timely. The reason is World of Warcraft had a peak of 10 million players and then dropped back down, and a quarter ago it had 6.8 million players. Well, because of its 10th anniversary and because a huge expansion in playing the game is going to be introduced actually next Thursday, it has now jumped from 6.8 to 7.4 4 million players. So there's a timeliness factor in that World of Warcraft currently is that World of Warcraft currently is a real point of discussion in the press and in video games discussion. And why do we choose Rise of the Horde? Rise of the Horde is the story of, as you see, two specific groups. Now, the World of Warcraft expansion that's coming out is actually going to be focused on that. But where it focuses is it takes it's time traveling. It's going to be taking place in this area that we have up right now, but they're traveling back in time. They're traveling back 35. They're traveling back in time 35 years. So history is trying to be unwritten. So you're reading about what that history is, and your students, if they happen to be players, they'll be playing and learning and seeing how this lore and this history is trying to be unraveled. So the time traveling alternate reality portion of this is really fun for us now. Now, when we asked this question, we did we did have other people reply to why World of Warcraft. And I just have it up on my screen now. And I'm looking at some of the comments from Trish Cloud. You don't even have to ask. We have Christina Tones. She's our librarian in residence. She also discusses about the game mechanic and how that does it. We have Martin Stack, and Martin's really interesting. Martin is using World of Warcraft for second language acquisition, and I'd have to say you're going to have to join our community to see a little bit more. And then probably what I'm gonna do now is ask Chris why World of Warcraft.
Why not? For me, the interesting thing about World of Warcraft is that it's such a broad game. As I mentioned in the at BlizzCon yesterday, the game itself has been around. The company in the game has been around for 17 years and counting. So I mean, that's what you're seeing is that you have a following of players. You have a very rich history of the game itself where you're almost approaching 2 decades of playership, and the old flagship is still standing. There's so much to do in a game like World of Warcraft. You can go ahead, you can you can do what the initial intention of it was, which is questing. There's lots of literacy. We, the Neville Betrayal group and Neville instructors have done a lot of presentations on the literacy in World of Warcraft, among other people. There's also lots of content in the game for you to get involved in, so you can form, you can be part of a guild. There's community aspects. There's socio and cultural aspects to the different guilds and the different players. There's a lot of rich backstory, rich history to mine and to document and to curate. There's lots of people who have really great websites that are about a game that no longer exists because World of Warcraft has gone through a lot of different iterations. So it started off as a PC-based game, which was more of a strategy game, very much like Civilization, where you were basically pitting two sides against each other in a rush for resources. And then it blossomed into this massively multiplayer online game where you have people from around the world. You have 7.4 million subscribers around the world. And the BlizzCon is actually very well timed for this book club because it really does show you the diversity that's out there of people who play the game. There's also a lot of business side of things. So my area is accounting and business, and so I use World of Warcraft to look at the auction house and look at the buying and selling of goods and looking at the crafting professions sort of as a manufacturing type of profession. So there's lots of things that you can use a large game like World of Warcraft for. For me, the main reason why is because of the wide variety of epistemic frames that a game like World of Warcraft provides. The idea is that as an educator, I can come in to a very large game and I can pick specific pieces of the game because of my knowledge of playing the game, I can actually pick out specific pieces of the game to go ahead and say, this is a really great way for my students to experience this concept or this idea in a way that they've never done it before. It's really fun whenever you have students trying to create financial statements out of their action house transactions that they're doing in World of Warcraft, and it's interesting documentation. But financial statements come out being the financial statements. The difference is, instead of being in dollars and cents, it's in gold and silver.
And that's one point. I guess now you might go to a lot of different websites or hear about or hear about how people have made lists and everything is on this list and you don't have to spend hours playing the game. Well, I would have to say, if you want to get rich in this media, if you want to get into the lore, if you want to go ahead and show the students a full a full game, a full universe, that you do have to play. Now, there's a difference between if you're doing something like working on multiplication tables or trying to look at some basic knowledge. But there are a lot of games, just like there's lots of books, that it's better to read the book before you teach it. So I have to say, I, I would advise it's better to play the game first before you start teaching with the game. And the other thing about World of Warcraft, and I'll go back here, is there's another reason why Rise of the Horde, the book the book we're now reading, is a pretty good is pretty good for timeliness, and here's why. Now, this was announced yesterday at the conference. The characters in our book are the basis of a movie that is coming out in March 2016. And at this convention for the company that makes World of Warcraft and other games, they brought in the actors. And that's really where the discussion of the hero's journey started. And your favorite people from this book are going to be in this movie in 2016. So while we did not plan it this way, this is how it has happened. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Craig.
Thanks, Kay. And so as we move forward, so let's look at a recapping of week 1. So, Rise of the Horde, week 1, we had to read 7 chapters. Seemed like a lot. But this is really where you met a big chunk of the story and meet a lot of the people. So, of the characters, the first one you meet, one of the first ones you meet is Kil'jaeden, also known as the Deceiver. And he is a leader of the Eridar race. And then what happens is he agrees to become part of the Burning Legion. And basically, his main focus is to assimilate all the races into the Burning Legion. So we talked a little bit about, in every story there's good and evil, there's light and darkness. Well, I would definitely say that the Burning Legion is darkness, as you can see from this picture. Though who knows? He could just be trying to get a bonfire going because he's cold. But the thing is that really Kil'jaeden is really sort of thought of as one of the main person out there who's converting people to the dark side, converting them to the Burning Legion. So really that's really what you see from them. You meet him while he's an Eridar, and then you sort of see him turn on his friends or his friend. Archimonde is the other Eridar leader that you meet. He's also known as the Defiler, and really what his job is to be the big bad blue guy. But actually, what he is he's the field commander of the Burning Legion. So that's what he eventually morphs into during the course of the book. And you sort of heard a little bit about him, but he's not really a main character in the book, other than just being there at the beginning. And then he sort of mocks Kil'jaeden there, just in like chapter 7. Or chapter 6. So really, those are the two big baddies in the book so far. Archimonde is a very, very, very not really really sort of not there. Kil'jaeden is sort of taking the more active role. And so that's what happened to Archimonde. And then you have Valen. Valen was the third Eredar leader. He is the one that decided that he did not want to accept Sargeras's power and decided instead to try to flee and take his followers with him. So basically, as you know now, after reading the first 7 chapters, Draenei means exiled ones. And so basically, he is the leader of the resistance, the leader of the exiled ones. These are the people who said, no, I don't want to be a big baddie. I want to go ahead and I want to flee and run away. So that is Valen, and you'll learn more about Valen as you continue on with the chapters. Cure is a Naru, and you basically meet him very briefly whenever Valen disappears. He is the Naru that talks to Valen and then goes ahead and helps rescue his people from the planet of Argus, which is basically where the Eredar lived. And so basically, the Naru are sort of, they look like they're made of light, and it's because they're part of the army of light. Yay! And basically, if there's light, obviously there's darkness, there has to be light. And that's really sort of what the Naru are, is they are opposing the Burning Legion. They're trying to recruit people to their side of the fight to help, defeat the Burning Legion and save the different ones. Naru are very altruistic. There's some conspiracist theories out there that maybe actually the Naru are actually worse than the Burning Legion. That they're masking themselves out there, but we really don't get into that in this book. It's one of those fun things that if you want to read up more on the lore, go ahead and go for it. Because obviously, if someone's really being altruistic and nice to you, they have some other plans. As someone else finds out in the chapters. So. Durotan. Durotan is, we've spent a lot of time meeting Durotan and the life of Durotan. Basically, we wrap up chapter 6 and 7 finding out that his father has passed and Durotan is now the chieftain of the Frostwolf clan. The thing about Durotan and his voyage is he's very traditional. He really is in a shamanistic way. And the thing about it is where you're at right now is he's just starting to get suspicious. He's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why do we hate these blue guys? We traded with them, we were okay with them, but now all of a sudden, wait a minute, now all of a sudden they're evil? What? Especially after he got saved, him and Ogrim got saved by them, he's got a little bit more understanding of the Draenei than most of the other orcs that are out there. Ogrim, he's the big bad friend of Durotar. He's from the Blackrock clan. He is also suspicious, but the thing about Ogrim is that he has to follow orders. He is a warrior. He is the sort of right hand of the Black Hand, which is the leader of the Blackrock clan. And really, that's what he does. He follows those orders. He does that's what you're really reading. That's what he's doing. I mean, they have an unusual friendship. What you see from the orcs and what you've read about the orcs is that they are very tribal. They're broken out in the different clans. And the clans aren't exactly trustful of each other either. It's sort of one of those unspoken things. You can pick up on it as you read the first couple of chapters of how unique their friendship was. It wasn't forbidden to be friends with someone from another clan, but it just wasn't done. They're the others, and so that's the interesting thing about their story is that you have this friendship that really shouldn't be there based on the backstory and the culture of orcs is that, but you still have these two clans, one leader of a clan and someone who is really sort of a trusted lieutenant of the clan leader of another clan, sort of having this friendship and building this friendship. And they have it, like I said, they have a friendly competitive nature where they're always trying to run up each other. They're always trying to do out-compete or out-physical each other. But really what you see and what you're reading is that Ogrim definitely seems to be the more physically strong. So he's much better at the athletic and strength, feats of strength, whereas Durotan is much more about skillful when it comes to strategy and thinking things through and solving puzzles and doing different things like that. So those are the two big characters you spend a lot of time reading up about with Durotan and Ogrim. Now we're moving into some people that we're getting near the end of the reading right now, who go ahead and start playing bigger roles. Nerzul. Nerzul was the most powerful shaman. He really was the spiritual leader of the orcs, and he also is sort of the de facto first war chief, just because that the orcs are shamanistic, and typically when it comes to making big decisions, he goes ahead and basically goes ahead and really sort of fills that void because they go to the shamans first to see what they should do. That's one of the reasons why he's really targeted by Kil'jaeden, and he is sort of tempted. We start reading about the temptation of Nerzul. He is the starts Kil'jaeden starts showing up as his mate and starts talking smack about the Draenei and how they're evil and they're out to get the orcs, and that Nerzul needs to respond. He also eventually gets referred to the Beautiful One, which is a bit more into Kil'jaeden's, is known for his narcissism. So of course he would choose to be the Beautiful One. So those are things that you're seeing there. You also get to meet the scurrying little Gul'dan, and at this point he is just an apprentice. As you're reading on, he will start taking a little bit bigger role. But Gul'dan is the apprentice right now, and what's interesting about him is that it's kind of funny because the book describes him as sickly and not much of an orc. But the thing is that he is very, very skilled and very strong in the shamanistic ways, and and that's the reason why he has the honored position to be, sort of the apprentice to the most powerful orc in the land. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops and move on. So those are the main characters that you got introduced to. I mean, there are lots of other ones, but really sort of these are the ones that really sort of continue on the storyline. So next we have important events that are going on. So first of all, in the first two chapters, really it was the rise of the Burning Legion. What's interesting about this is that Sigaris, really what the Burning Legion is, it's a mixture of demons and infernals, so all the typical nasties that you have associated with evil and darkness. And that's the Burning Legion. But what's interesting about this is Sigaris, as we learned, was a good Titan, got corrupted from basically fighting the demons that now work for him, and now he decided to go. You know what? Everything should just go to chaos and ruin. And so he got a little disillusioned. Poor guy. And basically what's going on right now is in the first chapter, what you're introduced to is him going, well, wait a minute. I'm not really good with management, and I need to hire other people who are better at management. And so, really, what you read in the book is actually spent him millennia searching the realm to find a race like the Eredar, people who were gifted magic wielders, natural magic wielders who were powerful, who were intelligent and cunning. And really, what it was is that he needed the Eredar to serve as his commanders, to serve as his infrastructure, his presidents and vice presidents of evil, I guess. But basically, the things he offered the three of them, Kil'jaeden, Archimonde, and also Valen, was that they would be the co-CEOs, they would be the co-people. So Kil'jaeden is basically in charge of recruitment and retention. Is basically what Kil'jaeden does. He's all about bringing new blood into the Burning Legion. Archimonde was more the commander in the field, so he directed the army. He was the great tactician, and he was really that's what he really loved, was crushing worlds and things like that. And so basically those are things that you're seeing. You're seeing that they were really looking at how do we go ahead and figure this out, because the book really sort of does talk about these three, and this is sort of what Sigaris was looking at. Is Kil'jaeden was known as a genius. He was so smart, and this is from a race of very, very smart entities. And the people was that he was like the smartest of them all. He was the genius in the group. Archimonde got where he was because he was ruthless and cunning. So he was very, very ambitious. He always wanted to dominate and get to where he was at. And that's really what Archimonde was known for. Now, Valen, the one who didn't accept it, is actually kind of interesting because he was known from the Eridar for his wisdom, compassion, and he also had sight. So he had the gift of looking at the future and visions, and that's why Karoo was able to reach out to Valen and warn him about what was going on. And so that's really sort of the breakout of those three. So you have genius in Kil'jaeden, you have ruthless and cunning in Archimonde, and then you have compassion in Valen. And in Valen, the compassion, surprise, surprise, was the one that didn't decide to turn to darkness. So the other thing we get, again, first couple of chapters, is the flight of the Draenei. They flee the Argus. They're chased for thousands of years on end. They're very adept at escaping. They hide out on Draenor, and they've been left alone for a while. They are an advanced civilization. You learn that whenever they save Ogrim and Duratan from the ogres. So you get to, when they go visit the city for the first time, you get to see that they go ahead and see how advanced their solution is. And naturally, they're cautious of orcs. I mean, they're on this. They've landed on this distant island, this distant world. They've got people running around who are very primitive, very hunter-gatherer, very nomadic, very warlike. You know, the orcs are very much shown as they are clannish. They fight within each other. They all talk about the bloodlust that gets upon them, where they lose control. And so you have these very, very, aggressive, natural denizens of this planet. You who've been running from people for thousands and thousands of years, and you land on this planet, and you're like, oh, hey, maybe we should be cautious. And so that's one of the things you see is you were reading about is the cautiousness of both civilizations as they approach each other. They still interact briefly. They trade. And it's kind of fun because you've got, the orcs who are red and brown, and you've got the Draenei who are blue, and they're blue, and the other guy, the orcs kind of have a weird feeling about these blue guys who show up every once in a while. And sort of we start wrapping up the book with wrapping up these chapters with the temptation of Ner'zhul. So basically, this is what I talked about before. He sort of shows up in the form of his mate, starts referring him to the beautiful one. Oh, the beautiful one is much more powerful than the ancestors, much more powerful than the elements. You should really talk to him and help you defend you against these Draenei. And really, the key nugget that they're sort of giving, and that Kil'jaeden's been plotting and planting in Ner'zhul's mind, is that the Draenei are plotting to harm the orcs. So obviously, the only logical way to react to that is to decide that, hey, we should kill them before they kill us. So natural, obviously, this is what you should do. So it's kind of interesting to get into that mindset. Again, the orcs are definitely portrayed as a very primitive people. So those are sort of what you've read about so far. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. We've covered right now about a third of the book. So we'll go ahead and we'll read the next third in the coming week. So first of all, though, but we want to go ahead and talk about the questions from week 1. So, what similarities does this story share with hero stories that you've read in the past? And this is sort of, Kay sort of already asked this question earlier in the presentation, but it's also out there in the community. So feel free to comment on that in the community and talk and comment on what other people have posted as well. Number 2 is, what do you find drawing your attention as you read onward? So with this one here is just sort of where you're going. I mean, what's interesting right now is there's momentum building. The orcs are preparing for war. The Draenei are this great evil. They're scheming. So now you have one group that doesn't know, that two groups that aren't really familiar with each other, that don't really have a good understanding of each other. They're now starting to become suspicious. You're starting to see that momentum, that pendulum is starting to swing. You're getting to the point, it can still be stopped. But will someone stop it? Will someone notice the manipulation? What's going on? And the other thing you see, the next question is, after reading about the orcs, what culture or cultures would you say that their lifestyle are similar to? And some of the people who've already responded have already brought up Native Americans, a lot of native cultures or indigenous cultures, a lot of hunter-gatherer cultures. I'm going to toss in my own and say that, yes, I agree, there's a lot of that native, that indigenous culture. part to them, but also, Martin brought up about it being like the part of like the Mongols, the original Mongolian horde. So there's part of that. There's also a lot of an Asian influence with the whole idea of honor and having to defend your honor. And then if you get, someone shames you, you need to go ahead and do that. So there's a lot of that. Next one up is, what did reading of the orcs' origins change about your perception of orcs prior to reading this book? So feel free to hop in there and talk about how they have changed, if they have changed it. Remember, what I said before was that World of Warcraft was one of the first games out there that actually allowed you to think about and approach things from what is traditionally thought of as the bad side. So that's an interesting thing, and a nice little change of pace that you have with this game. And also, how do these orcs compare with those from the Lord of the Rings and other fantasy books? So, continuation of the previous question, orcs are typically used in a lot of books as sort of the cannon fodder. They reproduce fast, they're not very bright, but they're big hulking brutes, and they have lots of physical. They're basically meat shields, and what you do is you just throw as many of them as you can at the wall, and eventually the wall will fall down. So, but this gives you a different side. So feel free to comment on what you've learned there. And other questions that are out there, sort of Kay's already mentioned this as well. If you're using this book in World of Warcraft to teach, how would you present the orcs, and what questions would you be asking about the orcs at this time? So go ahead and put on that teaching hat, and feel free to shoot out some questions there, and that you think that you would have people referring to, your students referring to as well. So without further ado, what we have the readings for next week in Rise of the Horde. We're going to have you guys read chapters 8 through 14. So this will take you through 2/3 of the book. So it'll get you, basically we'll see where that momentum goes. We'll see what happens, and we'll continue marching forward. So at this point in time, it's time for us to sort of think about parting thoughts. For me, what'll be interesting is it'll be interesting to see what's going on. And what's going to be interesting, what's going to happen is basically by our next review, Warlords of Draenor will be out, which means that we'll actually be able to take you into this alternative version of Draenor. So we'll definitely go show you sort of where, what is the sort of conceptualization of the Frostwolf clan and where they live. What does Draenor look like? We told you, Outland is a broken world, but Draenor is an unbroken world. So it'll be interesting to see what that world looks like in this unspoilt realm that we're entering into. So it'll be interesting to see that. And next up we have a reminder that on Sunday we will have the Games and Gender for Track 1, Week 1 presentation. The gamer identity and the representations of gender and race in games will be on a Hangout at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So 7 p.m. Eastern is when that will be going on. So Sherry Jones and others will do a really good job of bringing that up, and I look forward to a really cool conversation and discussion there in the community as well. As always, thanks for watching. Thank you also, ISTE, Game and Simulation Network, as well as the Inevitable Betrayal Guild for helping make this possible. And everyone will see you in world and online. Thanks for watching.